Yeah, I mean the plan is eventually to go. My master plan, if you will, from my Shadow and Act days was to have a platform that is online and offline that covers Black people globally. So not just Africa, not just America, but I really still think that is a possibility. Like, like be like the New York Times of Black cinema, right? Be the New York Times is international, maybe the CNN of Black film, international. So then you have headquarters all over the world, and you're covering what is happening in every key market. That's still the goal. That's still the dream, and I think that's very possible. In the long term, I think we can accomplish that.
Hey everybody, this is Mike, and you're watching the Real Black Podcast. And today we've got a very, very special guest for you, Mr. Tambay Obenson, whose latest endeavor is Akaroko. Am I saying it right, sir?
It's close enough, man. Akoroko.
All right. Well, we want to get it right because that's when we put on the check. It's got to clear, right?
We want those checks to clear.
All right. So if you haven't figured it out yet, Tambay is doing a GoFundMe, and this I don't have everybody who does GoFundMe's Tambay on the show because we've been demonetized. I'm begging for my own money, but I've known you for so long, and this is such a cool project that I want people to send you money, right?
Thank you.
And whatever amount it is, it's for the cause. This gentleman is a true soldier, a journalist who's got a long time background in documenting Black film. If there's anybody that I go to for information, it's the writings of Tambay Obenson. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you very much, Mike D. And there's a picture of you and I in my face. Like I was looking through my Facebook photos, and there's a picture of you and I. I had a scarf on, and I don't know where it was. The thing is, I'll send it to you.
It had to be in Queens. I've only met you in person. We talk all the time, but I've only met you in person at one time at the Museum of the Moving Image.
Maybe that's where it was.
Future Black Cinema panel. So
okay, yeah, I saw it. And I said, what? Like I didn't. I was like, what was this? What was this? And I couldn't think of where it was.
I think it was 2011. It's something Warrington Hudlin did in Queens.
Wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
I mean, I know because the video's on the channel. The video's on the channel, folks. What's the origin story for Shadow and Act?
Okay, I'll keep it short. Shadow and Act came out of frustration with just a general lack of coverage, like serious coverage of just Black cinema worldwide. We all had individual blogs. Some of us, anyway, had our own individual blogs, and I just got tired of it because I'm like, at the time there wasn't much to write about. This was 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8. Blogs were still kind of a new thing. There was no streaming didn't exist. Netflix was still doing DVDs, but they were just kind of getting started. We had no idea what the future held. So there are only so many Tyler Perry stories you can do, right? Like there are only so many Spike Lee stories you can do. No, don't disrespect anyone, don't drag me. But there's only so many things, so many articles you can write about 4 or 5 people who were working at the time, like working regularly. Like Tyler Perry came along in like 2003, and he was making like 2 films a year. And I just said, okay, I'm tired, and there's just nothing to write about, really. So I posted something on Obenson, on my own blog, the Obenson Report. I said, hey guys, I'm leaving. I'm going to stop doing this because there's nothing to write about. But I teased the idea. I said, but what we can do is if you all if anyone else is interested, because there were like 6 of us who were blogging at the time on Black film. If you guys are interested, let's just combine our efforts and just do one blog, one website. There's no point in us in 6 different blogs writing about the same thing, right? So I put that out there, and I didn't think anybody would even I didn't even think about it. And then I think a day or 2 later, one of the other bloggers reached out and said, "We should do it. Let's do it. And then that's how Shadow and Act was eventually born. It was like a 6-7 man effort, woman effort at the time, but then eventually it became Tambay's thing. It became my thing. It became, I just sort of, and then that happened over 7-8 years, and then I think it was 2012. IndieWire came calling and said, "Hey, you want to join a network? We can share ad revenue." Hey, because up until then I wasn't making any money doing it. I was a techie. I was managing a network for a financial services firm in Midtown Manhattan. And I didn't it never occurred to me that I could make any money doing it. And then IndieWire came, I think it was 2012, and said, "Hey, we like what you guys are doing. We want to diversify. We want to add. We're building a network. Do you want to join?" I said, how am I? I can't say no. And then that's when I started actually making money doing this.
Right.
We were sharing their ad revenue, and then that's pretty much the story. And then everything falls from there.
Akaroko, this is exciting news, and again, like I said, we need to support this because if we don't support it, nobody else is going to. Trust me.
Yeah, I'm speaking to people who are like Akinomoto, so this Nigerian South African. He lives in South Africa, but he's Nigerian. There's a series on Netflix right now called The Brave Ones, which premiered on Friday, I believe it was, and he's the one who created it and directed it. No, anyway, but he said that like with Shadow and Act, he was hoping that we collectively would save it. Like, I don't know if you remember when IndieWire got bought by Penske Media, and that during that, this was 2016, and because of that purchase, they didn't buy the rest of the other blogs, like myself, the playlists, and others that were part of that network. So I had to figure out. That's when I sold it to Blavity, because I had to figure out what to do. Anyway, but he said that he was hoping, or he hoped that somebody would bank with money. Some rich black celebrity would step in and save the day, but that didn't happen.
It doesn't.
And I ended up selling it to Blavity early 2017.
Right, which wasn't a bad move, right? Because it
wasn't a bad move. This is probably maybe an exclusive, but yeah, I mean, when I look back, I wish I didn't.
Okay.
If I could be perfectly honest, I wish I had actually done some kind of a campaign to raise money. Because several people reached out and said, "You need to do a campaign. We will give because we want you to save this." And but I didn't. I thought that at the time I wanted to just reassess what my options were and what my life decisions were, and that's why I sold it.
Right. I mean, for those who don't know, Shadow and Act, I mean, it was the premiere and still has some cachet. Not quite at the Akoroko level, but it still has some cachet as far as delivering daily Black news about the film productions that are happening. So it's sort of like Variety magazine, Hollywood Reporter, where there was this huge void in terms of reporting the new Black cinema, and Tambay stepped in and created this blog. And I mean, it was the news wire for all the information. When I was doing my screening series, that's where I found out about things. So for those who don't know, now you know. But
for sure,
Akoroko, what's going on? GoFundMe. What's the story here?
Well, I was born in Nigeria. My mother is Nigerian, my father Cameroonian. But I've lived in the U.S. for most of my adult life, probably since I was 13 years old. So for a good 30 years, I've been in the United States. Still have family back home, still have connections back home. Yeah, and I felt like now was the time. There were many reasons why this just felt like a good time for me to refocus my attention on the African continent. And I can list them off. I mean, it seems like we don't have the coverage, we don't have the sort of the seriousness, if you will, of coverage of African film the way that I think it needs to happen. I mean, much of the conversations, much of the more sort of critical discourse is happening in academia. But academia is not necessarily accessible to everybody. There's there's no sort of real popular discourse, and so you have countries in there where there are industries, there are things happening. Whether it's Nigeria, it's been happening for a long time, obviously since independence. South Africa, Kenya, Senegal, the DRC, and obviously the northern nations as well. There's stuff happening, but it doesn't seem as if there's, at least for me anyway, as somebody who pays attention to this stuff and who actually does the research, does the reading, does the listening, and there isn't sort of a consistent coverage of African cinema the way that I believe there needs to be, especially maybe more specifically English language coverage of African cinema. There are French platforms like AfriCine, and people always remind me, oh, there's AfriCine. Yes, I know, I'm aware. I do retweet them, and I do respect what they have done and continue to do. But I still don't think that even in French language coverage, it's not consistent. It's not relentless. It's not candid. It's just like we need to have a platform or two that captures African cinema for much of the rest of the world in a way that, just like Deadline covers, American film, just like Variety, just like IndieWire, just like Hollywood Reporter, the way that they cover consistent coverage, where it's reviews, it's criticism, it's news, it's analysis, it's contextualization, it's all of that, and I think we really, really need that for African film, especially, and so so what you have right now is you have a lot of non-Africans who are writing about African film, and then there's a lack of context, there's a lack of real sort of understanding, awareness of cultures, of language, and that's part of what we're going to do. That's not the only thing we're going to do, but that's part of
I was going to say,
Akoroko,
Akaroko is a news platform, but you also have some streaming invested in this too.
Not yet, but that is a goal. As I say, there's a journalism component and there's a streaming component. Those are really the two. If you want to simplify it, it's coverage and access. That's what we're providing. So coverage, umbrella term, coverage is criticism, it's news, it's cataloging, it's archiving, it's contextualization. As I said, it's all of that. It's conversations. Like we have a number of interviews coming up, and then access is streaming. So it'll be a curated platform.
Right.
I always compare it to Mubi because I like what Mubi, MUBI, what Mubi is doing, and that's sort of it's I guess, for lack of a better term, sort of a highbrow approach to African film. Like, hey, this is serious. Like, you take it seriously. Right. We need to put it in that kind of context, as opposed to Chimamanda, like what gosh, I was screwed up her name. The author, Nigerian author, said about the danger of a single story, and for a long time there's been a single story of what Africa represents, what Africa is, who Africans are. We know it. I mean, remember the "We Are the World" song from 1986 or whatever it was, 1984.
Do you want me to sing?
You like that. That is still the image that I think that much of the world has of Africa: poverty, famine, corruption, on just general unhappiness, sadness.
Right.
Violence, war. That's what we know about Africa, right? But I mean, as she would say, it's an incomplete story. Just like much of the rest of the world, all of those things exist. There's poverty here in the United States. There's corruption in the United States. There's war. There's certainly war. We know that. But we know much more about the United States. We have a more complete portrait of a painting of the U.S., but with Africa we really don't. And the films that come out of there still we don't have really thriving industries. We don't have a Hollywood. I mean, people talk about Nollywood, which is Nigeria, or Gollywood, which is Ghana, but really we don't have sort of a central sort of centralized system, centralized location that we can point to and say that is African cinema, that speaks to African cinema, that kind of thing.
But it's a long way. Like, I mean, I don't. I mean, since the shops are closed, it's harder for me personally because I don't look for them online. It's harder for me to find Nollywood films. But I remember maybe 15 years ago when the terms first started to catch on, I think. You know, I mean, we've come a long way from those sort of straight to video movies being passed around kind of culture of Nigerian entertainment, right? I mean, I think that I get a feeling like there's no coincidence that you would want to do this now, because we're talking to Tambay Obenson, who is the founder of Shadow and Act, and now his new endeavor is Akaroko, so which is a news platform and a streaming platform for African film and African cinema. It's no coincidence that you'd be doing this now. I think a lot of the indicators are, or correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like a lot of the indicators are happening in Africa that were happening around the time, 2006 or so, when you started Shadow and Act.
Yeah. You know, like you have Netflix investing now in original African content in Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya. You have Amazon now just entering Nigeria. They said they signed some deals with a number of Nigerian talents and companies. Disney Plus is now available in, I think, 6 African countries that they premiered in. Then you have Google. You have Google investing in technology, building pipeline. They just recently dropped a pipeline on the West Coast to provide broadband internet access. Facebook is doing the same. Well, Tesla has its balloons up in the atmosphere to provide broadband internet access. So, you know, there's a number of things happening at the same time that tells me, regardless of what their reasons are, these American companies regardless of why they're doing it, You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they obviously need to grow. They're trying to expand and get new business, and they see opportunity there. And so that's I think probably mostly why they are there. So and the talent has always been there, man. You know, the talent is there. I mean, you can see African music has traveled, African literature has traveled. And it's been very specific, like culturally specific. Like we haven't had to change the way we dance, change the kind of music we make. Like that stuff travels, and it works. So it's kind of like why is cinema not taking so long to catch up to everything else? And so it's a longer conversation, but yes, you're right. This is as good a time as any. For any of these companies to be going in, and for myself to be doing what I'm doing, to provide that sort of contextualization and say, hey, look, what is Netflix doing here? What's going on? What is Amazon doing? And who are the talents that you should be looking out for? Who are the people, who are the film that you should be watching? That kind of thing.
Right. And I was reading on your platform about the discrepancy. Like, I mean, there's more Nigerian film being distributed by Netflix, but it's by far not the entire piece of the pie, right? I mean, there's so much missing from what we get to see. Yeah,
you know, this is another one of those conversations that I'm trying that we will have, and that is, you know, this, you know, there's Nigerian cinema, there's Nollywood. Well, what is Nollywood? Who is part of Nollywood? And so you have Nigerian filmmakers, some Nigerian filmmakers who want to claim the term and say, look, yeah, that is who we are. We are Nollywood. And then you have some Nigerian filmmakers who say, no, we're not Nollywood. We're trying to do something else. So I tweeted something out some time ago. I called it, I said there's a civil war happening in Nigerian cinema. Like you have Nigerian filmmakers who want to go this way and others want to go the other way. And there's this clash, if you will, and we're going to cover that. I have a Nigerian journalist who's actually she runs a platform called Inside Nollywood, and we're figuring out how to cover that. So it's right. You know, probably in a podcast, probably on a Twitter space, probably an article, and combine all of that together, because it is a heated subject.
Right.
And for as long as I started to really closely follow what's happening in Nigeria, I've learned that it really is heated. It really is a conversation that needs to be had.
For a long time, Nollywood films had a bad rap for just being like really quickly produced and not technically adept. You know, yeah. So if I want to bring my talent to African film, what nations are most developed for me to try to travel to or become a part of that, in your opinion?
Yeah. I won't use the word. I won't use words like developed. I think some
Okay,
people
fair enough.
will probably take offense to that. But I think yeah, Nigerian cinema. And I want to make sure, because I'm sure I'll get dragged on Twitter. But but there's Nollywood and there's neo Nollywood. So that's one of those sort of complications that we plan to address at some point. But yeah, Nollywood is sort of represents some classic Nigerian cinema, if you will, beginning around 1992, even though there was cinema in Nigeria before 1992. But I think the term Nollywood was coined around that time. So you have Nollywood, and then you have, I think the film was Living in Bondage, that sort of catapulted Nollywood or Nigerian cinema into sort of international recognition. And then right now you have what is called neo Nollywood, like new Nollywood, sort of a new wave of Nigerian filmmakers who are sort of embracing new technologies, and they're trying to do some more interesting things that aren't necessarily in the same sort of style or vein as the old Nollywood films. But I would say Nigeria is one for sure. South Africa for sure, Kenya for sure, and the northern states, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, maybe not Algeria, maybe not Morocco as much, but anywhere where you have some kind of political stability, some kind of recognition of democracy, you will find that there is some kind of a film community that's thriving.
Well, we're definitely seeing a big shift, especially since the death of the Queen. I think a lot of it's going to change very quickly, I think, as we move forward.
Yeah,
we'll leave it there.
You hope so. Maybe.
I know it's sensitive. We'll leave it there. I said it, not Tambay. but that could be a thrill ride movie right there. Like a national treasure set in Africa kind of thing. Don't get me started. But so if you're paying attention, this is, you have to donate now.
Yes, if you've watched for this long, you better be clicking the link to donate something.
You have to donate, because this Tambay literally is, if what do you say, Google is laying the pipeline for internet along the entire western coast of Africa, Tambay is delivering us a pipeline for the information of what's going on over there, and he's always been ahead of the curve, from Shadow Knight, and even before that, when you're making independent films, you're always ahead of the curve. So
thank you.
This is something to pay attention to. What is it? I'm getting my checkbook out. What do you need? When do you need it by? And where can we send it? How do we send it to you?
Well, we're trying to raise $75,000. I mean, what we need is a lot more than that. But I realized, when I launched the campaign, speaking to Farima Konikito, who's my colleague, we're the only two people here, myself and Farima, and I thought, we don't want to scare people away. When you have a really large number, people kind of like, oh, we don't know if they can do it. So I said, okay, let's just start with what makes sense. Not what makes sense, but what we think we can actually attract. So I said, okay, $75,000. But we need a lot more than that to do the things that we want to do. But this will at least get us sort of, on the road, so to speak, on the freeway, like we're sort of on the ramp onto the freeway. And so this will get us on the freeway and then driving a little bit. So, and then it will help us position the company, put the company in a position to then, let's say 6 months from now is our target. In 6 months, we will invest all that money into the various components I talked about. And then in 6 months, we can then say, okay, yeah, we've established ourselves. We found these paths to revenue, to profit. And then we can put together a package that will then go out to VCs, to venture capitalists, and say, okay, we need millions. We need like real money to really, really drive this boat, this truck, if you will. So 75 grand is what we're trying to raise right now. The deadline is October 30th. That's the end of the campaign. I mean, GoFundMe allows you to run it however long you want, but we have a target of 40. We said 6 weeks, so end of October. It's the campaign is on it's on GoFundMe.
Okay, it's right there.
You can include a link. Yes.
Anyone who can read will see that right there.
Yes.
Okay, so please, if you're able to read, you have to send Tambay some money. That's the prerogative. All right. So
yes, or even if you go to GoFundMe and just search Akoroko, Akoroko, we will come up. We're probably the only things that will come up. There's nothing else called that.
Okay.
So yeah, but
right, I'm sending money right now. So
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
So I encourage, and it'll be a small amount, but what I want is anybody who's watching this to please match my donation, which will be $20. So if we get as many people to donate $20 as a result of this podcast, it'll make me super duper happy.